all you ghoulies and foodies out there, you can find Slice of the Paranormal everywhere podcasts are found, or you can watch us on our YouTube channel.
Welcome to the podcast. This is Slice of the Paranormal. I'm Ryan, and these are my friends Christy and Steve. And This is the podcast where we talk about all kinds of crazy stuff, unexplained paranormal phenomena. So we're going to talk about some true stories of some very weird history. Witches, ghosts, aliens,
Wendigos.
Yep.
All kinds of
abductions.
stuff. Aliens.
Demons in opera houses.
Demons.
Perfect.
Demons in opera houses.
Sounds like a good one.
I like it. So what we do is we go to these places, we investigate them. If there's any information, we look it up. Our historian Steve here tells us little bits of the story, and then he's going to tell us the full story here today. But let's talk about where we went, Steve. Where did we go?
We went to the Chestnut Street Opera House, which is in Sunbury, Pennsylvania. And to go with the podcast, I don't want to give them a lot of information. So I essentially give them a slice of the history of what's going on at a site, because I don't want to cloud their feelings on a site.
Oh, tell us too much.
Right.
No, so when we go there, I want them to go in completely open to the experience of what happens there, and not color their experience. And then when we get here in the studio is when they get to hear the history that I have withheld from them.
The Paul Harvey, the rest of the
Right.
story.
Yeah.
And while we're at these places, though, we always hit up a local pizza place. Mm-hmm. So we ask locals if they have a favorite place, or we look on a bunch of different apps, or try to find a place that's close to where we're looking. This time, when we were in Sunbury, we hit up Eclipse Pizza. So at the end, we're going to do a review of our trip to Eclipse Pizza.
Yep.
Definitely.
Well, Eclipse Brewery.
Oh, yeah, Brewery. I think most people go there for the booze, but we went for the pizza.
Let's call it what it is.
Yeah. So I guess today we're going to dive into the story of the Oxen as well, right, Steve? You had told us a little bit about this.
Well, when talking about the Opera House, there's not a lot of info on it, because the Opera House, a lot of the information we have of it is based on advertisements that have survived from 1901 to 1936. So people are constantly finding out new vaudeville acts that were there because someone's newspaper shows up and boom, there it is. So I got my start at the Chestnut Street Opera House because the company that owns it now reached out to my ghost hunting team back in 2010. So this is like 14 years ago.
This is what ghost hunting team we.
I was part of the Central Pennsylvania Paranormal Research Association.
Polarizing.
And that was under Kevin Savage. Now, that was the first team I was part of, but we broke off after this actual investigation. And then we went and became Cole Region Paranormal Team, the shirt that I'm wearing right now.
Nice.
It had typical haunting experiences. People felt weird. They saw shadows. And when you go into this building, they use where the stage was. The stage is removed, but it's just a warehouse now.
Just
And when it is, to be clear, it's now Kohl's Hardware, correct?
It is Kohl's Hardware. In fact, they probably would not let us in anymore. So we had an inn at that time.
The building is used as that now, or
the Kohl's Hardware is now the front part of the building. It's been added on too. Okay. So that's just their storage area. So beyond that, there's the ticket booth still has stuff from the Opera House. You go on the upper floors, you see furniture from that time period. What
time period are we talking about?
Well, the Opera House opened up on September 12th of 1901.
Okay.
And it held roughly, I think, 1,000 people. Some reports say it was 971. I'm not going to split hairs on the topic.
Close enough.
Yeah, pretty much, in my opinion. So when I was looking into it, they had over 400 vaudeville acts that have happened at the site. So It was a happening place. People, local people went there. Lots of famous people performed there in their early years.
Big names rolled through here.
Big names rolled through.
Now, Sunbury was pretty much a hub at that point, and it's still, I mean, kind of is, but
yeah, it was.
At that point, it was definitely like it was the seat of Northumberland County, I believe.
It was and still is. I mean, because we still have the courthouse.
The courthouse, right.
All that, and that probably has its own ghost hunting stories. But it was a hub. But then in 1936, what happens is there's the flood of St. Patrick's Day. This is before they named hurricanes, so we don't have a cool hurricane name.
Oh, no.
But the flood floods the town of Sunbury, and it's anywhere from 2 feet to 14 feet deep. So a lot of your businesses, like this opera house, shut down.
Right,
I mean,
because they were on the lower part of Sunbury.
Exactly. So if you think 1936, what else is coming out? Movies are starting to come out. So vaudeville acts are kind of on their way out, and now movies are coming in. So when you're going to have more movie theaters being built around that time, and then somebody gets places like the Strand, to be built. So
transition period.
Yeah, it's a very transitional period. But some of these vaudeville actors and actresses actually moved over into the whole Hollywood scene. So to give a couple names of the people, we had Helen Hayes, who was born in 1900. She dies in 1993. I mean, that's all within our lifetime.
Wow.
She sounds famous. Was she famous?
I feel like I know that name somehow, or I've heard it.
Rutherford B? I think he was a
It could be Rutherford B.
Like, she's literally the first woman to earn or win an EGOT. She wins an Emmy,
Grammy?
a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony.
Yeah, wow.
So she's the second person to win it, but the first woman to ever
Dang.
Wow.
win it.
She was through here?
And she was through here. Francis X. Bushman, which is a guy. It sounds like a girl's name to me, but he was in Ben-Hur, He moves on into Ben-Hur. We have Sophia Tucker, who was a comedian and actress. There's
a comedian for a female was pretty rare back then, too.
Yeah. We have Marie Dressler, who was an actor and a singer. Walter Houston, who's an actor and a singer, but you probably don't know who the hell he is.
I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know who you're talking about. I'm old, but come on.
But, that's Angelica Houston's grandfather.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, there's...
By far the best Morticia Addams, can I just put that out there?
If you're into horror and all that, this guy had to exist first before we got Angelica Houston.
Right.
So we got to give him a little bit of props.
All right, well, that's cool that he was here.
Yeah.
And then there's, Tyrone Power, who's, if you look back in these old films, he was one of the swashbuckler types. So he's in The Mask of Zorro and pirate movies and stuff of that nature. That's pretty cool. But then you get into, sometimes you get into history that isn't so nice. So there's this person named Donna Montran, who was born in 1893. She dies in 1976. And she was what they called... what did they call them? They called them bathing suit beauties. So these...
Who called them that?
Well, that's what they called them. These girls would come on stage and back when it was kind of risque to be showing ankle.
Right.
These girls would be, dressed up in bathing suits and you'd march a bunch of them out. And I mean, lo and behold, guys really were into that.
No kidding. That's a surprise.
That's not a negative part of her. But she was also in movies, and one of which is a movie known as The Birth of the Nation.
Oh,
yeah.
dang.
I mean, very, very racist,
yeah.
very pro-KK stuff here. So
what is that?
That's that black and white movie that's very racist and white Klansmen running through, and I've never seen it. I've seen clips.
She stars in this movie?
Yeah, she stars in the movie as one of the belles of 1861.
So she gets probably abducted by the black people and then rescued by the white people.
Yeah, I have not watched the full film, so I'm not the expert here.
Right.
So our viewers can watch the film on their own.
Let us know.
But to get back to the ghost stuff.
Yeah. Sidetrack on racism. Sorry.
My old group, CPPRA, when we did the investigation, we didn't have a lot of activity. I did feel like the attic of the area gave me a weird sense. Like I felt like watched.
Weird vibes.
And I'm a psychic brick. I'm not psychic at all. So like for me to feel anything, to me, that's something big.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to feel anything normally. But we had a junior investigator, a girl named Megan, who was like 15 years old at the time. And her mom was there, and she was like somewhere else in the building. And she was like, if you're here, can you go say hi to Megan? We like to do that. We sick a ghost on a fellow investigator when they don't know it.
It's a good idea.
A little trick.
Yeah.
So Megan was doing EVP work, and she got a disembodied voice, or an EVP, I should say, saying hi at that very time. So
That's pretty creepy.
she didn't know her mom had told the ghost to go talk to her.
Right.
And so to get that high is kind of interesting. That's why we record like the times that we sense things or ask questions, because you could be in one part of the building, ask a question, and then someone else is getting the freaking answer.
Right.
So if you record when you're asking questions, it sometimes connects to someone else.
Sure.
So to try to figure out why this site is haunted, for one.
So wait a second, who is this ghost that they talked to and told to sick on somebody?
Well, we're saying it to any ghost.
So
We don't know.
Dear random ghost.
Yeah, we have like 400 random vaudeville acts with how many actors, actresses, singers. We have no clue who's haunting it.
Okay.
Why do we even think? Like, did people
Has there been
die there?
reports?
Has there been?
Or-
No. In Sunbury, in the flood of 1936, there were 3 deaths. One was a taxi driver, and 2 others, when I read the newspaper reporting, they didn't give the names. They hadn't been identified. So there were 3 deaths that I know of in Sunbury during that. So it could be related to that, because that's
Yeah.
it could be the taxi driver. That and I think I might even somewhere have the guy's name. Yeah, right here it is. A guy named George Wagner was 25 years old, and I guess he was like getting close to the river to see what was going on. Like anybody, and the ground gave way and
Took them.
took him. So
So can I just go back to about the famous people that have been there?
yeah,
So I was talking today to my dad about the Chestnut Street Opera House and now it's Cole's. And he told me that several years ago, I guess when it was under different ownership, they were looking for a part. They didn't have it downstairs, so they took him upstairs. And I was like, okay, this is pretty interesting. So they took my dad upstairs, and the guy was saying that they found notes signed by Edgar Allan Poe up there. So I don't know. That's just, local.
I don't.
That came right from my dad. the guy.
It's hard to say. Like Poe was in Pennsylvania. If you go out in Western PA a little bit, there's Poe Valley,
Right.
And there's
Poe Patty here.
that they say that's connected to Edgar Allan Poe's family. So
Right.
Some historians will fight that and say, oh well, there's no written evidence of that. There's lots of there's lots of things that weren't written about that actually did happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
So sometimes folklore or these stories have a basis in fact, and sometimes we can validate them, sometimes we can't. But the thing is to take that folklore and see where that rabbit hole leads, and try to find out like if there is anything that can substantiate claims.
Yeah.
Right.
Why not?
So
So were there reportings of hauntings then? Like what
yeah, I mean, like people that work there, if you want something, you would have to, and they didn't have it on the showroom floor, they would go upstairs and, have to enter this giant area to try to find it. So most of the stories I had heard were all from employees.
Okay.
That had to go upstairs and
Makes
just get
sense.
something. Now, when we went there, I mean, the upper floors are really not utilized
Right.
at all. Like,
Yeah.
you could see like a pigeon that had died maybe 10 years ago.
Right.
How many floors is it?
I think there were like at least 3
Okay.
plus an attic. So it was a very interesting building. But that kind of concludes my paranormal stuff on the site. So then
On the actual opera house.
On the actual opera house. So I try to think when I'm at a site, you look at other things like the history of the town. You want to look at the geography of the area.
Sure.
So when doing research on Sunbury, there's a couple features that come up. One of which is one of the first things ever talked about about this area is there was a guy named Count Zinzendorf. Count Zinzendorf was a Moravian missionary, and he essentially was bringing Moravianism to the Native Americans. So one of the things the Native Americans told Count Zinzendorf was that this area, the area that we're sitting in right now, and which includes this opera house, was called Otsanoxon. Otsanoxon was given that name by the Iroquois, which is based in New York. Mm-hmm. And it referred to Sunbury and the west branch of the Susquehanna River. And it goes all the way up north along the Susquehanna. So this area meant the Demon's Den.
Oxen means Demon's Den?
It means Demon's Den.
That's pretty cool.
And like
It's Otsanoxon.
Otsanoxon.
Oh, I like saying oxen just twice.
Right. I tried looking it up like that. It doesn't work.
No.
You just get, hey, do you want to raise an ox?
2 oxen.
Yeah, you get 2
Now,
oxes.
If you look into Native American history, one of the most authoritative works is by a guy named J.F. Meganez, I think, and I'm probably murdering or butchering
Something
his name.
like that.
But it came out as a periodical, and it was the book is called Otsanoxon. And essentially, there's a cave that's on Blue Hill, which is right across from us, where we're sitting. And the demons held their revels in the cave. And that's where all the evil...
Held their what? Their revels?
Yeah, like that. That's a 1700s version of a party. Oh. They're chilling there. They're hanging out. The Indians didn't go into this cave.
Okay.
So
Is that the one right at the base of Blue Hill when you go to drive up?
no, people think that's it.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, there's the old cave. That's actually a test mining pit where they were trying to see if there was anything valuable in the mountain.
Yeah.
There wasn't.
Right.
So,
So that's just a... Yeah.
I have a friend that knows where the cave is, but we don't divulge that information because sometimes in the paranormal industry, if you let things out of the bag and you might send people to, areas that they'd be
Dangerous.
trespassing, dangerous. You
Yeah.
don't want to get people hurt.
Right. That makes sense.
So Otsanoxon's a very dark area. Now, I have a couple of my own opinions. Like, why would the Native Americans say this is the Demon's Den to white guys? Well, part of me thinks that they didn't want the white men to be on that part of the land because it wasn't sold. So Sunbury had this negative vibe. Every tribe that the Iroquois beat in battle, they were like, all right, you guys are women now. You're not men. You can't make war. You can't sell land. You can grow crops. So they were like, you have to live in Sunbury. So all these Indians are living in Sunbury, and they literally hate life. They're drinking fire water, which was rum or brandy or any other crap that was fermented and sold to them. And it was so bad that the local chief Shikellamy was like, in 1736, was like going to the provincial council. He's like, hey, you probably shouldn't sell alcohol to these Indians. It's ruining their lives. Unfortunately, the chief for the Delaware tribe was a guy named Alumapes. Now, Alumapes was a drunk. So he was at the same meeting. He's like, well, maybe you shouldn't sell it in the town of in the town of Sunbury. Maybe you can just sell it right outside in the woods.
Okay.
Outside. Because he was drinking.
He wanted some.
So Shikellamy was unable to get alcohol to stop being sold to the Indians, so he builds his house on the north end of town on stilts so that when the other Indians of the tribes that the Iroquois had beaten are getting drunk, He literally pulls up the ladder so that his family will not be molested or attacked during these giant drunken parties.
Yeah.
So
now Chief Shikellamy, he was overseer of 6 nations, right?
he was put in place by the Six Nations in charge of Pennsylvania. So he was the overseer of all the different tribes, because it was like Tudorlo, Sapaponi, a bunch of like tribes were under the subjugation of the Iroquois.
Yeah.
So he's essentially the big boss, you know, in town. So like,
and like our local high school is Shikellamy High School that we both graduated from. So
correct.
He's a pretty big deal.
He's a big deal. The Indians loved him. They called him our enlightener because they thought he was such a noble person. And in fact, like when you look at Sunbury, a lot of the graves of the Indians were around where Shikellamy had his house. You know?
Where is that in Sunbury?
It's in the north end of town. So when they were digging things around for the house, they were literally finding the bones of Indians.
You've told me other stories in Sunbury.
Yeah, like
they just dig up stuff.
Yeah, like they, you know, make a sewer line. Oh, there's an Indian. They were doing road work on Front Street, and they dug up Chief Shikellamy himself. In fact, they only knew it was him because he had a King George the First, I think, medallion with him, and over 400 beads and all the grave goods. So they were like, "Oh, this is a chieftain."
That's crazy.
So what'd they do with the body? Were they respectful or?
We don't know.
See, and that's the whole thing. It's like they just used this land for whatever they needed to, and they're just like, "We got to do what we got to do."
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the 400 beads were found. Only maybe 2-3 dozen are at the local historical society. We don't know what happened to the others.
That's sad.
And the other grave goods. We don't even know what happened to their bodies.
There's a lot of desecration going on.
Yeah.
Well, I remember I came to you and asked, because my friend had well, it's a pretty cool story. He came to me. It's one of the best parts about doing this podcast so far is whenever I tell someone I do this podcast, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I have a story to tell you. I have to tell you the story."
Right.
So I love it. It's fun to listen to all these stories. And this one actually is probably the one that freaked me out the most. And it's about Sunbury. It's about, because I came to you and asked. Basically what he's saying is every time I stayed at my dad's when I was little, and I hope I don't screw up the story, but every time I stayed at my dad's when I was little, I had this reoccurring nightmare. And he explained the nightmare in vivid detail, you know, and just every step of it, walking into this hallway and this door is open and he can see this this person with a huge smile, ear to ear, this huge teethy grin, and just the eyes and the way he made me, like the way he explained it, I'm just like, I'm creeped out and you're just telling me about this dream. So as a kid, he had this dream, you know, many, many times. And then come to find out, other people who lived in that neighborhood when he got older, it was a shared nightmare. Other people had this exact same guy in their dream.
The big smiley guy.
The big scary teeth guy, and did similar like things in their dreams. Like, because what he said, every time I'd get to the door, the guy would come and be like right in my face and scare me and stuff. I can't tell, like he did, obviously.
That's very creepy, though.
Super. And shared dream. And I'm pretty sure he said it's more than 2 people that he's talked to. So, and come to find out, same area. It's this place where they just dug up all these, you know. And the only reason I knew was because I talked to Steve about it.
Right.
Yeah, like Indians were very concerned about their...
Native Americans.
Native Americans were very concerned about the graves being respected.
Sure.
So there's lots of stories in folklore where the Native American grave is disturbed and a guardian of the Native Americans appears, you know, because of that.
Wow.
So in the 1800s, they actually built a canal, a water canal, through the town of Sunbury.
Yeah.
And when you study the history, you're like, hey, they started the canal from the Susquehanna River, and they run it right through this Indian burial ground, and then through the town. Now, my ghost hunting teams have found that a lot of homes along the old canal are haunted. So
Because that's where they threw the bones.
Well, I mean, the bones, like, there's the theory that water carries energy.
Sure.
So, like, obviously the Susquehanna River carries energy, but you're taking the Susquehanna water and you're running through an Indian burial ground. You're charging it.
Yeah. You're basically
Literally
supercharging.
you're supercharging this energy and distributing it through the town.
Right. Let's just spread out.
So, like, I've investigated sites along that path, and It's come up numerous times.
Yeah.
In fact, I've investigated the superintendent's home of the Sunbury Waterworks Company, and we've gotten EVPs there. I've done Degenstein Community Library, and we've gotten disembodied voices. And
that's a pretty new building too.
It's a very new building, but it's on the old high school building.
Yeah, that seems to be the issue. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Like, it's the ground that's kind of haunted.
Yeah.
Like, we got EVPs of, that murmur when you're walking through class from class A to class B, and you hear that, like, muffled sound of everyone talking.
Yeah.
We got EVPs of that in the library.
Oh, neat.
Where no one's there, talking. There's no one going class to class. But we could still hear the energy. Not that all those kids are still there, but that energy.
Just like a residual.
Like a residual energy of that. And it might be just because the ground itself.
Now, is this canal, so I was friends with the old mayor of Sunbury, Rusty Karlovich, and he said it's called the Gut. Is that what you know it as? The Gut of Sunbury?
I haven't heard that, but he might know more than me.
Yeah, he just, like, this huge, under the town of city, or the city
guts.
of Sunbury, the water, and, like, just everything comes out, I guess, at the water authority.
I would believe it. I mean, there's so much. That's the thing I love about history, is no matter how much I study, I never run out. There's
You still learn more
There's-
stuff.
Yeah, if I ever say I know everything on a topic,
Yeah.
slap me in my face. Because there's no way anybody can.
I like when you call it Devil's Den, because that reminds me of when I grew up. I grew up near a park called Conneaut Lake Park, and they had, we have Knoebels here. It's very similar. But they had what we call the haunted house at Knoebels, that ride, this indoor ride where they try to, the jump scares and the black lights and all that fun stuff. For us, it was called the Devil's Den.
Oh, neat.
And I always remember the one first, you could see the kids go down it because there was like a cage and everyone would stick their gum up on the wall. But anyway, it's just to remind me of my childhood when you say the Devil's Den.
Devil's Den.
I think it's pretty sick. I'm glad. I'm not, this is cool. The studio right here is in this too. And
Right.
It's kind of a local episode for us. We all
Right,
have
and
kind of
you
history
have
area.
lived in Sunbury for quite some time. You basically
Definitely.
consider it your hometown.
Yeah, I've definitely spent some time here.
Yeah.
And Nora, yeah.
Yep.
And it's funny, when you look back through the history of a lot of these sites, there's so many things that are linked to the devil. Like north, we were just driving past Williamsport, and I'm like, hey, this boulder field's called the Devil's Turnip Patch.
Right.
You know?
Devil's Turnip Patch.
You go down to Gettysburg, there's Devil's Den, but that Devil's Den is named after a giant black snake.
Oh.
That lived in the rocks.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I don't want to see that snake, but it sounds cool.
Well,
Ever.
But that's where I think a lot of this weirdness comes from in Sunbury. It's like the tragedy of what happened to the Native Americans and their culture, and just the bad vibes of the town.
Well, didn't you tell me, like, the first time we were talking about this, it's almost like a curse?
Yeah, I mean,
on.
I feel like it's a curse. Like, you take hundreds of very upset people who are losing their culture, put them on a specific plot of land. I mean, they're feeding that energy into that site.
Yeah.
So how long does it take for that energy to dissipate?
Yeah, right.
You got a lot of wrong to right. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, so it's hard to pinpoint where who the activity is or why it's there.
Just kind of a coverall for a lot of the unexplained stuff that goes on in Sunbury.
Exactly, because I could go to a house that has no known deaths to it, but it's somehow connected to. It's still connected to the land. It may be connected to the canal, but there's still dead people all around Sunbury, still in the ground that have not been found. And Nori is the same way.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had friends from Northumberland when I got into high school who had lots of ghost stories.
Yeah, I mean, most people don't realize there were like a dozen graveyards all through town, and it wasn't until the 1850s, late 1850s, that they were like, hey, maybe we should consolidate these. And that it's over 100 years since they've been buried, so they started digging people up and moving them to a centralized cemetery.
Which is just as,
but like,
not good.
well, and how many did they get? You know,
Yeah.
did they get them all?
Or all of it, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people that there wasn't much left.
I got most of that guy, I think.
Right.
Yeah, and then you got enough of them.
Could be a couple fingers back there, but
So you go to our local cemetery, there's like 50 headstones that are all real close to each other. They're the ones that they didn't get the bodies, and some of the stones disappeared, so they didn't even know to dig to get the body. So, this whole area's just got a
bunch of bodies under it.
bunch of bodies. I mean,
That is really creepy when you think about it. Like, if you're going around in town, like,
no, go
there
home.
might be some bodies under here.
Go home, watch Poltergeist, maybe dig a pool.
Oh, right. Oh, that was always the scariest part for me
dig a
in
little
that
hole.
movie. Oh,
Dig a little pool.
Yep.
Someone's going to pop up. It's all right. It's all
Brian.
right.
Yeah.
It's just our ancestors.
That is crazy.
well, we also went to Eclipse while we were in town, right? We went to pizza.
Yeah.
did.
That was really good. Love the
Eclipse
atmosphere. in
Brewery,
there.
yeah. So there's a bunch of pizza places to choose from, but we chose that one. I think we wanted a drink as well, right?
Yeah.
We were looking for a drink as well. And typically when I go to Eclipse, and I've been there before, I like their other pizzas. But for the podcast reasons, we typically get a cheese and a pepperoni pizza to try. So we did that this time, and I'll start with Steve. Steve's review says, now we out of five slices, which Steve gave it a 4.25.
Wow, that's really high.
It is one of the highest ones I think I've given.
I think it might be, the highest you gave so far. You said great ambiance. Love the crust and how thin it was. Wish the pepperoni was a little crispier. Cheese was lackluster but solid pizza.
Solid.
Was impressed with the list of different pizzas. Yeah, and can confirm their pizzas, the other ones are great.
Yeah, I wanted to try all the specialty pizzas. They just all sounded amazing.
We did get a taco pizza
We
too.
did, which was amazing.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
Christy, you also gave it a 4.25 out of 5.
That's
You
pretty
said-
high for me.
I think
That's really high for me.
Might be the highest for you as well. I think it might be the highest for all of us. Excellent crust.
I do love their crust.
You ate the pizza slice backwards because the crust was so good.
I did.
Is what you said.
Yep.
Great balanced pizza.
It had a good sauce, cheese, crust ratio. Again, the crust was nice and thin and just had a good flavor, a good chew, a good snap to it.
It was
Yeah,
good.
it was good pizza. And the taco pizza, by far, was the best.
Can confirm. And that, what's the Reuben pizza?
The Reuben
is
pizza is so
awesome.
good. And so is the hoagie pizza,
Yep,
I gotta
hoagie
say.
pizza.
That one's very good, too.
I haven't had
It's a
one
good
I don't
place. So
like.
if you're hungry for pizza in Sunbury, go to Eclipse.
Or near, yep. Eclipse
Not
for
to
sure.
mention, like, the ambiance, like, to expand on that, it's very artsy.
Yeah.
There's so many things.
There's an alien on the wall.
Yeah, we were getting pictures.
There was an alien on the wall.
Pictures of everything on the walls because we were just intrigued by the space.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's like a piece of plastic, and it's like broken, and they have it like displayed up on the one wall. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I don't know what that's all about.
Here's our plastic.
They're like, this is our broken
All
plastic.
right. Do you like it?
I'm guessing it has some significance.
It must.
We should have asked. I also gave it a 4.25. I love their pizza out of 5. I said the cheese was perfect, sauce was tasty as hell, and wanted to eat 500 pieces of this. That's what I
Wow.
said. 500 is what I'm bragging
Wow.
with.
So I think next time we go, we should actually take this mug. Have either of you ever seen a mug like this?
No.
It's got 3 handles on it. It's called a loving cup. And what it was, and I brought this here because
That doesn't sound good.
yeah, right. This is pre-COVID cup.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
you fill it with booze, and there's handles so I could hand
So you
it
can
off,
hand it off.
and we could all drink out of the same cup. Now I brought
pretty cool.
this
That is
cup,
very cool.
because it was made in 1909, and it was actually the Sierra Club, which is an environmental organization, and the local chapter, is the Otzanoxen.
Ah,
Chapter.
it's spelled on there?
Yeah, it's engraved with Otzanoxen. So this is my Demon's Den cup.
Not even close to how I would have spelled it.
Can we pass it?
Yeah, you can pass it around. It's a heavy cup.
That's
But
why I couldn't find it.
I think that cup was...
It is heavy, but it's actually like not as heavy as I was expecting it to be.
Because you got to put some beer in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a perfect booze cup.
And I understand why it's the 3 handles. It makes sense.
Yeah, it's so that you
pretty
could
cool.
be
It
is.
standing in a crowd
Just pass it along.
and just like pass it along.
Yeah.
Everyone drink booze and it's one of my favorite cups. Is the
We
Demon's
should
Den
see
cup.
if they'd fill that up for us. That would be fun.
I wonder. I'm sure
They
they
might.
would at a cost.
Yeah.
But,
Growler
definitely
cost. It's very cool.
So we'd like to talk about if we would ghost or haunt that place before we move on from the pizza.
So the pizza, yeah. I would definitely haunt that place.
Yep, haunt.
I would definitely haunt that place.
Yeah,
too.
it's cool. I definitely have haunted that place.
Yeah.
so.
Obviously, you already knew about
It's
the
bad.
Reuben.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
bad
yeah.
news. They knew me pretty well. I was a mug member for a little while, so for a couple of years.
I'm surprised they weren't like Ryan right when we walked in.
It's been a few, yeah. Thank God they weren't. Was that it for everything we got for today?
I think so. I mean, it sounds like we've kind of wrapped it up, but if anybody out there has had any personal experiences in the Cole's Hardware, it used to be the Chestnut Street Opera House, or if you have any other information about Oxen, or just want to add to the episode, you can email us at sliceoftheparanormal@gmail.com. And if you do like what you've seen and heard today, please like, subscribe, and follow our podcast and social media pages.
Yep, leave a comment if you want. We're on all the social media.
Right.
Come see our TikToks. Yeah, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. And join us next time you
Crave a slice of the paranormal. So if anyone out there has a personal experience at the Chestnut Street Opera House, or a story about Oxen, or would just like to add anything to the episode, you can email us at sliceoftheparanormal@gmail.com. And if you do like what you've seen and heard, please subscribe, like, and follow our podcast on our social media pages.
This podcast was produced by Stone State Entertainment.